Hello again and welcome to Module 3 on your quest for better time management. In this session of the 45-minute work hour, our goal is to help paint the time management picture. When we feel an increased stress over our growing to-do list, our common reaction is to try and schedule every minute of the day, thereby working longer days and trying to pack more activities into the hours we are already working. We multitask, run from meeting to meeting, peek at emails under the table, work early in the morning and late into the night. Our plan was to reduce stress and overload, but the results are exactly the opposite. We end up overworked and feeling more stressed. If this sounds like you, then I want to introduce you to Sarah, because she knows a thing or two about managing her time. Sarah's a petite woman with a firecracker of personality, accented by her red corkscrew hairstyle and emerald green eyes. Sarah's story is that right after she graduated from college with an art degree, she and her husband Tom bought a flower shop in downtown. This was a great opportunity because they could devote all of their time to running it. And within a few years, it had become a financial success. As life would have it, Sarah became pregnant with their first child, and in their 4th year of business, little Brian was born. She began to realize that her time seemed to be less and less in her control. However, with the help of a baby carrier strapped to her chest, she managed to juggle the business and motherhood. Then 18 months later, when their second child, Lisa, came along, Sarah and Tom decided it was best for her to stay at home. Sarah still managed the books and helped during the day by answering phones, but now it seems like she had no control over her time and she was starting to feel helpless. Here are Sarah's own words about what happened next.
Trying to run a business and having 2 toddlers at home was the ultimate time management challenge. It seemed like no time was my own time, and I actually felt helpless. I agree with the idea of keeping your priorities straight, and those 2 little kids had to be my top priority. And although my husband Tom was able to help run our business for the most part, I needed a new strategy. I needed to get back into an activity I had complete control over. My painting. Now, I know this sounds confusing because if I was already strapped for time with my first 2 priorities, my family and my business, why would I decide to add painting? Seemed crazy at the time too. But I saw on TV how one woman had written a book by leveraging her time, using 15 minutes of free time in the morning before her children got up. She consistently wrote a portion of her book. And yes, it took her more than a year. And yes, she had to be persistent. But she did it. Although I understand that everyone's life and priorities are different, I had to look at my situation and decide when I actually had control over my time and when I did not. I realized that once the kids were awake, I had little or no control over my time. I was often doing like 7 things at once. It was really all about them. Plus, once the flower shop opened, I could not necessarily control when people would call. However, I was able to control my time before the kids awoke and before the first customer called. So I started painting at 6:30 each morning. Some days I would only have 15 minutes and other days I'd have 30. But I am able to finish a painting every few weeks or so. I believe the secret to successful time management is not about managing every hour of the day. It's about finding the time that you can manage, then leveraging it to do what is most important to you.
Here's what I hope you took away from Sarah's experience. Her first point was decide when you actually have control over your time and when you do not. It's often surprising to most people when they discover the truth about how they're using their time. And I imagine your experience will be no different. So here's how to find out. At the end of this session, I'll share what is called a time map, which allows you to keep track of how you're using your time. And it simply involves tracking your activities from the time you get up to the time you go to bed. A week of time mapping would be ideal but we recommend a minimum of 3 days. That's 2 work days and 1 leisure day to obtain a variety of data. Then once you have this data, you can look and see when you might be able to better plan your most important activities. If you're honest about how you're currently using your time, then your map will reveal when you have more control over it. These are the blocks of time that you should try and manage. Let's be clear. The goal is not to manage a rigid schedule for every hour of the day. Like Sarah, we are looking for times throughout the day when we have control over our activities. And depending on your situation, this might only be 30 minutes or it could be 5 hours. The objective here is to try and manage the time you can control. With most people, mornings can be the time when they have most control over their activities. Likewise, at work, studies show the first 1 to 2 hours seem to be the best. But if you're not a morning person, then an afternoon or evening block might work best for you. But you won't really know until you map your time. Sarah's second point was then to use this knowledge to leverage your time. By leveraging, we're talking about using an advantage to obtain a desired result. Therefore, you are leveraging the time you have the most control over by focusing it on your priorities. And just to clarify, you do not have to use the same priority for the same time block every day. For example, Sarah used her time block in the morning for self-expression by painting, but the CEO used the evening time blocks for his family or charity work within his community. Your assignment today has 3 basic steps. Number 1, download the time app and track your activities from the time you get up to the time you go to bed. Remember, we're recommending a minimum of 3 days. That's 2 days of work and 1 day of leisure to obtain a variety of data. And then step 2 is identify 1 to 5 blocks of time that you have the most control over by going back over your time map and then circling these blocks. That's step 3. Leverage those time blocks by matching them to your priorities. Don't skip this assignment because in the next session, we're going to introduce you to Lucky Haskins. He's an insurance agent that's going to teach us how to double your productivity without working more hours. Until then, happy mapping, and I'll see you for your next session.